one of the biggest changes we have to have is recognizing that we are not an external species living on a rock that is floating in space. This rock is the one that created us. All the minerals that are within our body are coming from the minerals that are in the soil. We are not something living on the planet. That's the main shift we have to have. We are the planet. Not taking care of the planet is not taking care of ourselves. So it's not about ecology. it's about self-protection, self-awareness. That's one of the main shifts that even those who wants to defend the planet has to have. And we have to also recognize the planet also created the gazelle and the lion. So there is a balance for many things. And how can you apply the laws of the universe for that balance to be actually in harmony and not creating destruction?
Matias de Stefano, welcome back on Just Tap In. What timeline are you most excited about for humanity right now in this moment?
Thank you for inviting me. And timeline, well, I guess that the one that we are not in, for sure. We have been already we have been last week in Egypt, and the whole thing was about we were in the Tree of Life in Egypt, and the message of the Tree of Life said, you are all out of the right timeline. And I think that gave me this concept of we are all in the right timeline because of learning, and I am excited about everything that is happening today in the world with this expansion of consciousness, with people understanding that what we are living is not anymore what we are supposed to live. Everyone willing to change, but not knowing where. And this not knowing where is because we are out of the right timeline. We are living in a parallel reality right now that is not the one that we were meant to live. But even though, because we are living it, is part of the process to understand it. So I think it's really exciting times right now, even more than many others that we have lived before.
And from a greater perspective, is there such thing as a right timeline? And what would that even begin to look like for us?
Let's say I usually and lately I'm trying to describe things with something that I don't understand, which is music. Because I don't know how music works, but even though many of the messages that I'm receiving is regarding music. So let's say that you have a piano and you have 88 timelines, which are the chords of the piano. So in order for you to play a song, you cannot be only playing in one timeline. You have to play many, but those many needs to be correlated to one another, meaning there must be chords and harmony for that to sound correctly. If you are playing a song, but every time that there is a specific chord of tension or resolution, you miss the right note and you play the other one, the one aside or two more to the left, what happens? That it sounds wrong. And everyone is like, that wasn't good. So there are many aspects of ourselves that are in different timelines, in the past, in the present, the future, in different dimensions. So imagine that there are beings in the multidimensionality playing a huge piano, and when they play the song for the right song to be played, to be heard, the aspect of the third dimension, which is us, we are like not concentrated in the song, so we play any other of those chords, of those strings. So our note, if it's not tuned correctly, if it's out of the timeline, we are not part of the song. We are part of another song. And that is what breaks harmony in most of the process, not only here, but also in other dimensions that are waiting for us to play the right note. So there's no wrong, because our note, if we decide to change the song, it might be good. So it's good for another song. So it's not a wrong timeline. But when everyone decided to play a different song, but we don't play the right note, so that's the wrong thing, basically.
Beautiful. And I wanted to talk to you about this recent astrological and planetary shift where Pluto went into Aquarius. Oh, yeah. And you're calling this a new great planetary revolution that began very recently and goes all the way up for the next 20 years.
Yes.
So why are we living through this planetary revolution? And what does Pluto entering Aquarius really mean for all of us?
Well, Pluto is the slowest planet. Even if people say today, well, it's not a planet anymore, it doesn't matter what science says, it's there. So it means that it's moving our energy anyway. And Pluto is the slowest because it's the farthest. So from our point of view, it takes a long time for it to move from one constellation to the other. Like, for example, Mercury changes so many times every month. It can change many constellations, but Pluto, it takes many years. So from our point of view, Pluto, which is the last one, it's also the death. So it's the end of a process. If you have the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, all of them are part of our life. And if you take the solar system, the last one is Pluto, which means this is the end of something. So it means transformation. You have to transform. There's no way you can escape that because it's the end, it's death. So you have to get ready, but you might not be ready for that change. And Pluto takes all the things that we have been hiding within us, which is the alchemy, the transformation within, the release of all our darkness, so we can acknowledge it as poison and create medicine from it. So it's like all the darkness that is inside coming out, telling us this is the time to transform, and you cannot keep that within. You have to spread it outside and transform that. So it's very pushy, it's very tough. And when it enters Aquarius, it's crazy because we are used to Pluto in Capricorn. And Pluto in Capricorn is like hard work. You have to break your structures. You have to do a hard work and find a routine and find a way to actually transform yourself. It's a very slow process. But Aquarius, it will change every day. It means that, oh, you have to die today. Oh, you have to die in 3 hours. You have to die in 3 hours. Oh, you might have to die tomorrow. So, and you don't know. It's a constant innovation of transformation. It's like we are gonna go into 20 years where everything will be killing us constantly in the most unexpected ways, trying to make us see things in a completely different way every time. So it's very exhausting and very weird. And it's going to be 20 years that are going to be like, what is happening? I don't understand anything that is happening. And a shift of ideas, a revolution of concepts and society. Like the last time that this happened, that Pluto entered in Aquarius for so long, was the French Revolution. So, and the French Revolution was very, very intense for all humanity because it changed the way we are today. So the next 20 years, starting a month ago, are going to be, is democracy the right way? Should we change it to something that never happened before? Should we change our technology in a different way? So all these things about going to Mars, transhumanism, all of that is going to be these next 20 years. And most of people are going to suffer that. So it's going to be crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would love to open the space also to utilize our imagination. And you have a pretty wild imagination as well of what structures and systems could arise from this void of this unknown that we're entering. And I know you're very politically oriented as well and have dreams of shifting the political system in your own way. How would you begin to lay out a new system for humanity that would bring us more back into our divinity, in our wholeness, in harmony with each other? What would that look like for you?
By nature, most of humans are looking for that right now. And most of the technology and the ways and organizations that are being born in this time, they are starting to be aligned with that idea in the future. All of the new ways of connecting through internet, through not hierarchy structures, and being more autonomous in every decision. The way in which, for example, Bitcoin is basically crashing the idea of what economy is. So all of that is happening. The thing is that it's not happening because it's what is coming. It's happening because most of the people don't like what have been. And what have been, it was useful for the time that we needed it. And if we fight against it, it's like trying to fight our parents all the time and complaining about them when they have nourished us to be who we are. So when you honor your parents, you can move on. Not when you fight them. So, and this concept of not fighting the system, for me, is very important to transcend the system, because we have this ancient idea of we have to fight the king. We have to go against the laws that are forbidding us to do whatever. We have to go in the streets and protest, and actually most of the changes are not happening because people fight. Are done by people that are in their living rooms trying to program that system, to create tools for that to happen. So the other ones are making noise, of course, because it's the way you can realize that something is off. But actually, the change is not happening because of that. The changes are happening because of the people that are planning the new things. So in Aquarius, it's going to be more about that. And putting together a group to fight against something because of an ideology, that's very Pisces era. We have to be all together. We have to love each other, be all equals to one another, and go against anything that limits us so we can be expanded and whatever. But the conflict with that is that whoever thinks a little bit different from us, we create polarity, duality. We start to fight against each other, like political parties, for example. So parties from parts, like we cut the parts, and you cannot cut society because it's fluctuation. It's like an ocean. There are some waves up, waves down, but all the waters are combined. So you cannot divide. And these were the two fish. So you have, one right, one left, and that's the very symbol of Pisces in our last times, which is one is going to one direction, the other one is going the other direction, and all trying to find the school of fish. So you feel that you're a part of something. So that is going to be over, because individuals are going to be connected to one another, not needing to share the same thoughts or the same ideas. They just have to have a purpose, a project. We need to solve this situation right now. So imagination is going to be the most important tool that we can have for that. So the new systems that are coming and that are being right now designed in parts by different people, it's more related to how biology works. It's more related to how a human body or any other body works in nature. We have a perfect technology because we work perfectly in our daily life, but we have millions and millions of beings that they know what to do. They all relate to one another and they don't follow rules. They don't have a president, like ourselves don't have a president, don't have a parliament. They don't have laws. They apply different types of laws, which is the inner law. They apply resonance. They apply freedom. They know what to do and when to do it. They use the brain as a way to share data and information, not as a way of control and rule. So if you pay attention to how biology works, is how the future will work. But we are still thinking as mammals. That's our problem. We are still thinking we need the herd, we need the leader, we need the one that cooks, the one that fights, the one that so we organize the structure in a herd, and whenever there's another herd in front, so we have to fight it or make ourselves better. I don't know. Like there is this situation of mammals, not humans, that we are still fighting. We are still trying to go against each other, and we are entering in a complete different era that is totally opposite to our mammal way of living. And that's why technology is taking over, because technology goes beyond our mammal way of thinking. And so I like to say that we don't think as humans. We think as mammals, which is very different, because a tree, a mushroom, a whale is also human, because human means from Earth. So they're all human. So we will become humanity and we will become humane when we stop thinking as mammals.
Wow. There's also another element to this where the planet itself is in a moment where it's becoming aware. Mm-hmm. It's becoming more conscious. And what would that then mean? The human, the species, the humanity that lives on the planet itself, as it becomes more aware, how would that affect and link? If we're very connected with the earth, how would that shift us, ourselves, and the collective?
Well, one of the main things that for sure will happen is that human beings that recognize connected to the planet, we are not going to speak about the planet and humans. We are going to say Earth. I am Earth. So I'm human, not speaking about the species you are, but speaking about the planet you are. One of the biggest changes we have to have is recognizing that we are not an external species living on a rock that is floating in the space. This rock is the one that created us, is the one, all the minerals that are within our body are coming from the minerals that are in the soil. So we are not something living on the planet. That's the main shift we have to have. We are the planet. So not taking care of the planet is not taking care of ourselves. So it's not about ecology. it's about self-protection, self-awareness. That's one of the main shifts that even ecologists has to have. Even those who wants to defend the planet, as if we are not part of it. And we have to also recognize in these terms that the planet also created the gazelle and the lion. So it's not that the planet wants for everyone to be a deer eating grass. The planet created options that will kill each other, that will generate different ways of consuming energy. So that's why we have humans that behave more like a lion and humans that behave more like a deer or a gazelle. So having that in mind, this human idea of trying to make everyone living like a deer and fighting against the lion, it will create so many deers that eventually the forest will die. So there is a balance for many things. The problem is when you have too many deers or too many lions. So it's not about looking for perfection, it's about balance. Most of the things in this planet has balance, and it found different ways to control the unbalanced things. So that's why as much more humans we have, because we don't have, we don't have a natural enemy, like a lion to kill us. So the planet creates more plagues and more bacteria and viruses. It's like, okay, I will have to compensate this somehow. So regarding how do we become conscious, I don't want for people to confuse conscious with good people. Conscious is not related to being good.
Morality.
Morality, exactly. Mm-hmm. Conscious is related to the understanding of the balance of things, and how can you apply the laws of the universe for that balance to be actually in harmony and not creating destruction. So it's completely different to be a good person or bad person, because we are tending to say, oh, a conscious person is a good person and a bad person is unconscious. But actually it's not related at all with that. Like most of the good people are unconscious. And why? Because unconscious people are not doing bad things. Unconscious people are just following the others. Unconscious people are following the school of fish. That's what unconscious means. And there's a lot of good people that lives like that. So, and it's not bad. Unconscious energy, unconscious mind is helpful to maintain the energy moving on. Without unconsciousness, there's no energy, there's no movement, there is no things to do. So we all need unconsciousness at certain levels in order to exist. Because if you, with each one of your cells, become conscious, suddenly you are enlightened and you are useless. Basically, like an enlightened being is useless in this third dimension. Is useful in the fifth dimension, useless in the third dimension. So that's why to become fully aware is almost impossible, because you wouldn't be able to be making this podcast. I wouldn't be able to be here speaking. Like, we need to keep the energy moving. So to have consciousness is to be aware that you need unconscious and subconscious in order to function. And that's also good. But it's not about being a good person, being in the good morality, because the morality from Saudi Arabia is not the morality from the States. The morality from Spain is not the same morality from Argentina. I don't know, the morality in China is completely different from the morality in Australia. So it's very different. And so you cannot put morality to consciousness. It's different.
Beautiful. Last week, I was in Mexico at Dr. Joe Dispenza's first 10-day extended retreat. And toward the end, we were really getting into talking about dimensions, multidimensionality, parallel lives, timelines. And it was fascinating because he describes the soul as a recorder, and that if we are eternal beings, that means that the soul has been recording a lot of different things that we've experienced. And when you were 12 years old, your guides told you that you would start remembering the last 12,000 years of history. And so many memories came back to you. And we touched on some of them in our first conversation, but one I would really like to go deep into is you were recording a show on Gaia, and all of a sudden you remembered one of these recorded memories that came back to you that really, I think, struck a chord in you and really explained to you why all of these memories came back to you. You looked into someone's eyes and something happened. If you would, I think it would be a beautiful space to open, describing that and why that happened and what you were feeling when you remembered that.
Yeah. Well, first, to put a context into what is memory, as you said, is a record. And record is the same word in Spanish for remember. So recordar. So it's the same origin of the word. Recordar, remember, record. For Spanish is grabar, but actually it's the same word. Why? Because recording or remembering, which is the same thing, is not just about recording things that happened. It's about bringing them all to your heart. So when we talk about remembering with our brain, like I am remembering images, I'm remembering things from the past, we tend to compare memories with neurons, with the images that we see in our brain. But that's the last process of what is happening. When you remember, you're actually putting together so much information and data that is all around, being absorbed by every cell, but by every one of the senses in your body, that then when they all match somehow and they link in your heart, suddenly you unlock a memory. And then your brain, the processor, is interpreting that memory and showing you how it looks like. Okay, so this means that we are constantly remembering, but we don't pay attention to it. And one of the reasons we don't pay attention to it is because we are not usually in our hearts. We're usually in our minds. So because we're constantly trying to understand everything that is around. And by being in the heart, I don't mean like these people that say, I love you. that's not being in the heart. Being in the heart means that you tied everything in the 0 point where you don't feel any emotion. The heart is this beating, constant beating that marks the pass of time. It's like a clock. So it doesn't have emotion. When we feel these emotions are actually from our stomach or intestine. It's not from the heart. It's just that the heart starts to beat faster because it's pumping blood, basically because of that. But the heart is this middle point of void where when you connect everything to your heart, like the feelings of your legs, of your brain, of your side, of your hands, every organ, all of it goes to the heart, and suddenly you are not. You disappear from yourself. Suddenly you just hear the pulse of time. Suddenly in that moment is when you start to make sense of the memory. So that's why there's this confusion of remembering, feeling in the heart, like you have to be more in the heart. People confuse it with emotions. And it's not that. Being loving and stuff like that, but it's not. So what does it mean? It means that in every timeline, imagine that what I said about feeling your leg, your hand, your ears, your eyes. I'm describing space. You can also say feeling the room, feeling the garden, feeling my country, feeling a mountain. I'm describing places. But in the pulse of the heart, those directions are time. So that mountain for the heart is not a mountain. For the heart is 1987. For, I don't know, the country, it's 1701. I don't know. Like, you have timelines that are also there, happening, existing there, but you can connect with it. And when you pull them together, suddenly you can remember things that are actually happening in different timelines. So that's why we can still remember. We can be connected to any timeline and we can remember everything. The recording of all of that means that the soul is being able to experience everything and bring it back to the heart, once and again. So, so to have this very old image is like having a cassette, with the, and then to listen it all again, you have to put we used to put the, this is terrible for the Gen Z, but but we have to put like a pen or something to screw it until you went backwards, in the recording. So in order to be able to remember, you have to allow this heart to be again turned backwards and backwards and backwards, which means to make a revision of yourself, meditation, self-observation. So it's like a constant, like to rewind the cassette, you need to go backwards and backwards and backwards with yourself. Not in time, but with yourself. Who am I? Why am I doing this? Blah, blah. So all these questions are about rewinding the cassette. So what happened with me in that specific moment when I was talking about this situation that was in Egypt? It was not Egypt. It was a colony from Atlantis. And I was describing a situation of a meeting. And so to describe it better, I had to go backwards with myself until I was not Matias talking. I needed to become the one that was there. So I needed to transform myself into Shiu, the one that was, to be sitting in that chair, observing the table. So I was actually living that situation. And in that moment, I saw something that I did that from the point of view of Matias, I wouldn't remember. So I was observing from her point of view. And as she turned towards this being that was sitting on that table, a Syrian person, a very tall being with a veil covering his face. So as we were not supposed to see, to watch these beings into the eyes. When they were talking, they are talking with so much awareness that if you see them in the eyes, it's like you can see everything. So they say you always bow in front of them and you don't look them in the eye when they speak to you. But when everyone were like this, I remember I went backwards and suddenly looked at him, and he looked me back. So when I saw it, I saw the future. I saw many things, and in that precise moment, I remember because of that. Because I tune in a different timeline, a different record of someone observing me through time while I was trying to remember something. So I saw everything that he saw. And it was like this sight that made me remember today.
When it comes to the Syrian being, and you said that they have such an expanded awareness. They're probably perceiving reality in a very different way, and probably their neural patterns in their brain work so much differently than where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that's in terms of evolution and consciousness rising and ascending? Will we get to the point where we perceive reality in the same way as these Syrian beings? Like, you're getting a taste of it, but I can imagine that it's far more complex than that as well.
It's more complex because we are related to the biology of this planet. For example, even before the first cell existed, we were already programmed on how to see reality. And the reason why we were programmed to see reality in this way is because we have only one sun. Our Earth spins 365 days a year in 24 hours every day. And we have a moon that has 13 cycles. And so all of that, it's programming our way of thinking, our way of perceiving reality. So we were born in a planet, we were programmed for millions and millions and millions of years to understand that there are 12 hours of day, 12 hours of night, that we have duality, that the moon is guiding us during the night, but sometimes it disappears, which means that something new might come that we don't know because it's unseen. And then when the moon is full, it means that, a cycle has been completed. So we program ourselves according to those cycles. So we are not just living on a planet and things happen to us. We are the result of everything that is happening around. The position of the stars, the gravity, so many things. And they are from another world that has 2 suns, that has 5 moons, that the cycles are completely different. So there are more light every day. There's not like night and dark, night and day. So that prepares a being to think completely different, because you have 5 moons, which means that you don't have only one perception of your soul. You have 5 aspects of perception. So it's like having 5 senses in emotions. It's very much complex. So that's why they can feel future, past, and present, and 2 times more. You don't have one God to follow or one thing that you call unity, because they have one big sun and a tiny one. So that means that you don't have the father figure, that you realize that that's another type of light, another type of understanding yourself. So you don't follow someone, you are one with someone else. So it's easier for them to be connected to telepathy, for example, than us. For us, it's more about how do I feel regarding the one that I have in front, which is like moon and sun. So we are programmed by that. But for conscious being that has 5 moons and 2 suns, you can see reality in a very, very different way, because their cells were programmed that way for millions of years. So it's not about humanity won't reach that level unless we leave the planet.
Yeah. And in this case, they were leaving their own planet to come to Earth and have these meetings with the humans that were around in the colonies of Atlantis. Do you remember what these meetings were about, what they were discussing, and why at that time we still had people from the stars visiting us, and now we don't see that as often or as publicly in the mainstream?
The reason why some of them came, one of the main things to understand is that they don't come to speak with humans. They come to talk with Earth. So when they come here, it's not like they are talking to you personally. They talk to a system of this planet. It's like, for example, I'm talking to you right now, but imagine that instead of deciding to speak to you, I decide to speak to your right eye. So I'm not speaking to you. I'm not speaking to Emilia. I'm speaking to the right eye. That's it. That's the only one I'm going to speak. Or maybe one tooth. So that's not how it works. Like you speak with the whole being. So they have become their planet. So when they come to speak with us, they speak as a planet to a planet. So what happened? If the planet is not paying attention to what is being said, how can you speak with someone? The reason why people from other worlds were able to speak with Earth is because the civilizations on Earth were all aligned with solstice, equinoxes, constellations, the cycles of the moon, the cycles of the sun. We were all tuned into the right mountains with the right rivers, like working our lives according to the consciousness of that time. So the mother civilization was connecting us all to be a spaceship of time. So Atlantis was one of the civilizations that managed to adjust humanity to how the planet is thinking. That's why they were able to come and speak. But it's like trying to connect two computers from one side of the world to the other without internet. Like if you don't have internet and you don't have a cable in the ocean, you don't have the satellite, if you don't have all the technology that it requires for you to speak with someone from the other side of the planet, like we are doing right now, so it's impossible. I cannot even see you. I might know that you are there. Like I have the feeling that he's there in the other side. But if I have to send you a letter, handwritten letter, to answer every question that you have, how long it will take us? It would take us like years until we finally finish a conversation. So the same thing we are trying to do by sending letters in a straight line to other worlds. Like we don't know when the letter will arrive to in that way of thinking. So the Atlanteans and other civilizations in the past, what they did was, I'm not sending a letter. I'm not saying like smoke messages to other worlds. I'm going to connect with them, becoming the planet and using the quantum physics in order to communicate with beings that I don't need to see their eyes. I don't need to see them physically. So we are not ready for that. We might be getting into the tune for that to happen, but we are still in the Star Wars way of thinking. We are still thinking that, oh, if the aliens come, they will save us. No, that was Jesus. It's like aliens are not here to save us. It's like how can they save us from ourselves? Like the problem is you. It's not like if they come here to save us, they have to kill us. So it's not. First of all, we cannot project Christianity or prophets story with aliens because they don't think that way. They are not here to save anybody. And the other thing is like, we want to speak with them like humans speak with kings or presidents, like trying to make political things in between one another. And they don't think in those terms. They think like beehives. They think their way of thinking is completely different. So they are not coming to you unless you are in tune. So there's a whole bunch of things in the way of thinking that we project that humanity, our humanity as a mammal, is the way in which, for sure, other clever civilizations are working too. Like, and it's not how it works. It's not like that.
In what ways have the ways of thinking of advanced life forms influenced our culture now? Because if this was in Atlantis, around a few thousand years ago, now we don't remember a lot of those things, but what has that influence of their time here in the past influenced us today? And how are we beginning to rediscover those messages that they left behind?
They left us the understanding of time in a circular way and the power of voice, sound as a way to build, to structure reality. So that's why in the ancient times, they understood much better how the constellations work, the planets. Like now we understand the science of it, but not the essence of it. Like we're still like trying to get that. So in that time, they gave us the way to understand how to organize the technology of this planet, like the pyramids, the temples, how to build all this up. They didn't bring like a spaceship and said, here you are. That's what the Europeans did with other countries. Like, oh, you don't have civilization, so here you are. Christianism, here you are. I don't know. All the republics, whatever. Like the democracy.
Let me just take your gold first, and then
yeah, I would take your gold, and then so it's not, that's our way of thinking, but from their point of view, it's like you need to understand time. You need to understand the technology of this planet related to how to build the mountains to harvest time. That's part of the cultural thing that gave to every civilization the same basis of the stories, the same stories of walking a path of 12, everything comes back, like all the stories and cycles and the technology of the pyramids around the planet. So that was all the legacy of our interaction with them.
You had a conversation recently.
They didn't build it. They didn't build the pyramid.
They helped us with their understanding of sound and frequency.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting now that we're talking about pyramids, because you recently had a conversation with our friend Robert Grant, and you described how there is a planetary network of pyramids around the world, some that we know about, some that we don't know about. But the goal then is to play these pyramids in a harmony, like a song, once we understand how they work as a musical scale. What can you say more about that?
Well, every pyramid is designed with a specific mathematics. And when you do the right math, which I don't know, when you do the right math,
we'll leave that to Robert.
That's for Robert. When you do that, to find the right note of each pyramid in the world and the position of those pyramids, you can actually have something that is very easy to see in those things that in the gift shops. Yeah. Have you seen in gift shops when you go to an airport, or when you go to Barcelona or Amsterdam, and you go to these souvenirs shops, and they usually have like this little box that you can spin, and there are like different dots located in different positions, and like these strings that hit them and makes a song. Like if you do it in the right speed, if you do it fast, you can hear it. If you do it slow, you can understand it. But in the right speed, you have the song. Have you seen those little?
Yeah, I have one of those right by the Christmas tree now.
Okay, cool. Well, so I don't know the name of those. Like
me either.
Okay, so
ni en español, I don't even know.
No, I have no idea. So imagine that the planet is one of those. So every pyramid in the planet is one of those dots. Okay, so at the right speed, if you have the right note, if you combine the speed of light, the speed of gravity, the spinning of the Earth, and you find the right spinning of all of this with which notes and locations are each one of the pyramids in the planet, then you have a song. So it's exactly that. It's like din, 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 din. So you find a specific song, and if you play that song, it's like opening the box. So to other dimensions.
Why would we want to play the song?
Oh, we don't have to. We don't have to. But remember what I just said about there's a whole huge play, an orchestra playing in the universe that we are missing because we are like this stupid guy doing ding ding to the wrong note. so everyone is waiting, like in the orchestra, like the piano guy, the guitar, the sitar, the harp, everyone is playing their song, and every now and then this silly guy, the earth guy, plays the wrong notes. So everyone's like, oh, here it comes again. You know, it's like right now we are in the orchestra. Right now we are the guy with the triangle. So
you don't want to be that guy.
You don't want to be that guy.
No, just kidding.
I'm sorry.
I was that guy.
Okay, you were that guy. Okay, I didn't even play that. So so we are the guy with the triangle, but we don't know how to play correctly. so that would be us right now. So the question is, do we want to play it right? Do we want to play that song? If we play that song, suddenly we can see the orchestra. If we don't know how to play it, we are just seeing this little triangle. Yeah.
I would love to bring it within for a moment, because several of your memories ago, you remembered being a woman walking the initiatic path in the land of Chem.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is a tradition that we've lost in modern society, of initiations and walking initiatic journeys. I would love to open the space to highlight the importance of what it was like back then, and also how we can begin to bring some of those elements of initiations and of, walking these sacred journeys into our life now.
Well, this is one of the meetings that we have now with my team. We are trying to put together a team to design apps and platforms that can help us to do that in our daily life in an easier way and non-spiritual way. Because we have this joke with my friends that I don't like spirituality, which is like, it's like a paradox in my life. But I want for it to be as neutral as possible for everyone to be able to access, not having to understand what an initiatic path is, but everyone knows what the hero's journey is, because we all watch movies and series or read books. So that's everywhere in the common culture. So one of the ideas is how to bring that path into something technological that everyone can use every day. So what is an initiatic path? First of all, an initiatic path is anything that you initiate. So maybe you say tomorrow, you know what, I want to learn how to paint. So that's your initiatic path. It's part of your initiatic path to learn about the colors, about, like the canvas and how does it work and so on. So anything that you say, I will begin something new that I have never done before, or I'm going to do something that I used to do, but I need to do it in a different way. So that's an initiatic path. And the thing is that we tend to do that constantly, all the time. But what we don't realize is that there is a mathematics, a structure, a geometry in which you can do that. So you can take more benefit from it. Because otherwise we are just like randomly doing things, and sometimes it takes years or crisis or chaos because we are not getting in which state of that initiatic path we are. So in ancient Egypt, what people did was to create, we call it sut. Sut was, and sut and swut, there are two different words, but kind of are related. One means the people or the path, and the other one means two. So it means swut means two, which means two sides of a river. You have two sides of a river. So you have to learn how to weave it and to cross from one side to the other until you understand both positions of your own self. One is death, the other one is life. One is night, the other one is day. So you have to be in every position of the initiatic path until you connect everything as one. So you have the Trinity, the river in the center, and the two, the polarity. So that's Hermes stuff, okay, so with the two snakes and the stuff, which is Caduceus, yeah. So that perception is swut. So svuti is the ability to walk the Trinity, to walk by the two paths in order to find the third, to find the balance in the third. So we had to go through that. And what people did in that time was to create temples or holy places in each one of the nodes of that path. And along that path, people used to live. Some people used to live in one region, some people in the other region. So that's why we also called the people or the country Sut. So it means that in order to do the whole thing, you have to acknowledge and know all the people, something like that. So those who we had to walk that path, those who were doing the initiatic path, we needed to destroy ourselves by reconstructing ourselves constantly. So we needed to make some questions. Like, for example, the first question that you have to do is, who am I? And you cannot move on until you transform and answer all the possible answers to who am I. It's not like, oh, I am Matias. I am the son of this and this. No. So first of all, the first question is, who am I? Well, I am Matias. But then you realize, who is Matias? So you have to deconstruct who is Matias until Matias doesn't exist anymore. And then you say, I'm just a result of my parents. So who am I related to my parents? Who am I related to my friends? Who am I related to my family? Who am I related to? So you deconstruct every who am I. And once you have the answer to all of that, then you can move on to the next one. What do I have? And so it's a very long path, a very long path of questioning yourself, but you can do it easily because we have 12 months in a year. So those 12 months are related to the 12 questions. And every constellation is the path that you have to take in order to answer those questions. So the first month of the year, Aries, with the equinox, that first month is the one that is asking, who am I? So, and it ends again in who am I? So
in Pisces,
it ends in my belief. I believe. What do I believe is the last one. But then that belief becomes again in who am I? Because I believe in myself. Everything that I believe is because of my perception. So I have to come back to me again. So the whole path, the whole thing is something that you can do every day with just 12 questions. Like, answer the 12 questions for today. Who am I today? What do I have today to face the day? What am I able to communicate today? Or what do I have to say today? What is the feeling of today, my feeling of today? So if you just answer with one word, this 12, you start to organize your initiatic path every day. It's these 12 questions that you have to kind of answer in order to program what is going to happen during that day. So you can do that for every month or for every year. It's just about how to relocate and organize that. And then it gets complex in the initiatic path, because for you to rewire each one of those questions, you need to follow the 7 laws and apply those 7 laws in each one of your 9 physical chakras. So you have to ask to your feet, who am I? And then when you say, who am I? You have to go through your idea of who you are, the correspondence, why you are like you are, the vibration, what is my name or the word that describes me today, the rhythm, am I like this often? So you have to ask those questions and then go chakra by chakra, asking the same question. Who am I? Knees. Who am I? Genitals. Who am I? Sacrum. Who am I? Plexus. Who am I? Heart. And in every chakra, you go through my idea, which is mentalism, then correspondence, then vibration, then rhythm, cause and effect, polarity, and generation. When you reach generation, you say, oh, I am this in my heart. Oh, I am this in my throat. I am this in my third eye. So that's generation. You transform the question of the idea, mentalism, to something real, generation. But you have to walk that path. So it's a whole complex thing when you start to weave that initiatic path. It's all about deconstruction of your being, so you can actually be.
Yeah. And you actually took this path of self-discovery from July 29th, 2020 to August 4th, 2021, where you spent 365 days inside the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Not all day.
To explore. Not all day. You would go once a day, right?
Yeah.
Once a day for 365 days, asking these questions. But really, before getting into that process for you, I would love to stay on the initiatic path that people would take in ancient Egypt and ancient Chem. And you said that Bir Tawil, the land of no one, which is also related to the Philosopher's Stone, is the missing piece in order to complete the puzzle to rebalance and reset the initiatic path that Thoth had designed for everyone.
Yeah.
Why is that the missing piece?
It's a very long story, but I will try to summarize it. So the Nile is this stuff of the being, and the reason why the Nile is so important and not other rivers in the world, I don't relate to other rivers in the world, but coming back to the origin of all human consciousness was the Nile. And the reason is because every human being that was born for the first time on this planet, the species, human beings, we are from Africa. We are from Botswana, from Zimbabwe, from South Africa, from Tanzania. So when people from Africa started to spread from Africa to the north and the east, they had to cross the Nile. They all had to cross at one point the Nile that goes from Uganda to Khartoum. That's one of the Niles, White Nile, and then the Blue Nile that comes from the center of Tana in Ethiopia, with the Blue Nile going to Khartoum, and from close to Khartoum in Sudan, it becomes only one Nile going up to the Mediterranean Sea. So from the mountains of Ethiopia, or from the mountains of Sudan, the forests of Sudan and Uganda, every human being that spread towards the world, they needed to go through the Nile or cross the Nile, which means that humanity, in order to spread in the planet, needed to follow the Nile. So that's why it's our first initiatic path that we did consciously, knowing that we were heading north. It's the first path that took us to understand, okay, this is a very holy place for us. If you follow that river, you won't get lost if you try to go to north. So that's our first purpose in life. Before, we were just going around trying to find a tree, trying to find food or a well of water. But this one created a nation. This one created something different through ideas, consciousness, and so on. So the middle point between Khartoum and the Delta, that middle point is close to the region of Abu Simbel. So all that territory was controlled by an empire called the Kush Empire. So the Kushites, they were before the Egyptians, one of the cultures that came from Ethiopia following the Blue Nile, and they spread all around Sudan and Egypt. And the empire of the Kushite Empire, was the keeper of the Ark of the Covenant, were the keepers of ancient wisdom and information. So there are many stories about the Kushite, and the middle of that territory is Bir Tawil. So that region, when the Egyptians took over, the Kushite left, and all of that happened. So that territory kept a territory that is sacred, because it's the middle point between Khartoum and the Delta. So it's like the middle point of the one Nile that represents from the root chakra to the crown chakra. Okay, so you have like the two legs, which is Blue Nile and White Nile, and they both get together in the center in Khartoum to ignite the being. So the middle point of all of that is that territory. What happened? That during the British Empire, the British divided the territory of the Nile in two, creating Sudan and Egypt in the latitude 22. But when they did it, they commit a mistake because the limits were 22 latitude, but a little part of Egypt was down and then a curve up of Sudan. But when they cut it in half, they left a little piece of Egypt inside Sudan and a piece of Sudan inside of Egypt. Since then, Sudan claims that territory. They say, that territory called Halaib, this is ours. And Egypt says, no, according to the constitution, this is mine. You can keep the tiny one, which is called Bir Tawil. And the Sudanese, they say, no, we don't want Bir Tawil. We want the actual one, the one that belongs to us, that is bigger and has gold. So nor Egypt nor Sudan wants Bir Tawil. And it's a territory that doesn't belong to any country. International laws doesn't apply. It's
we'll take it.
It's a place of no one. But there are 3 tribes that they cross as nomads. and they consider that their territory, even if it doesn't belong to Egypt or Sudan. The Ababda people, the Bashariya, and the Bija people, they cross constantly that territory. And it's very dangerous, like very, very dangerous, because there's no law. So, so, and it's very difficult to go. Like, actually, it's very complicated to go. It could be very dangerous for people to actually go there. But it's not about going there and creating a country there. It's about the concept, the philosophical concept. The shape of the country, the shape of the territory is this philosopher triangle. And it's the missing piece of the puzzle of humanity. It's like if you have the puzzle of all the maps of the world, well, there's something that is not there. There's like a void there. So if there's a void, it means that in that crack, you can actually download something new. You don't have to fight against constitutions or stuff like that to create something completely new. You can create a new nation, a new state. And so this idea is like the inspiration that I had regarding a new state of consciousness, where you don't have to actually, you can build something online being anchored there. You don't have to actually go and live in the territory. You can today have a nation worldwide spread. So the thing is that philosophically, that story means there's something missing in the origin. There's something that was broken in the origin of humanity. The being cannot be fully in because there's a little missing piece of the puzzle of the Nile, of the puzzle of our history that keeps us looking for something, which is the Garden of Eden. So the concept of the Garden of Eden as the sin, as the conflict, as being expelled from the land of this heaven on earth, so towards the desert. So all of those stories are compelled in that territory. And so if we manage to use it somehow, we can start repairing history. So it's a symbolical thing of how the philosopher's stone, becoming a territory by itself, a state of consciousness, can put everyone together into the creation of a new society, of a new philosophy, of a new way in the crack of time and space. Yeah.
Let's claim it.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things that we
Vamos. You mentioned a few times throughout the conversation, or we scattered it throughout, about the concept of gold and why it was so meaningful today. But what is the true ancient story of gold and why it's such a revered mineral around the world and to humanity?
Well, of course, gold is, it doesn't get rusty. So it's one of the most precious minerals that keeps on going the same forever. So that of course called the attention to many ancient people to understand, how can you live forever? How can you not get rusty and old and die? So gold became this example of eternity. Gold became the example of the power of the divine on earth, something that is eternal, that doesn't change, that doesn't get rotten and rusty. And it's shiny and beautiful. So how can you make everything turn into gold? Became like the philosophy of every ancient tradition. For some people, gold was so holy and so sacred that needed to be everywhere. For example, I've heard a lot of people saying, well, in the Mayan traditions or the Aztec traditions, gold was like nothing. The European people were looking for gold. And
Colombia as well.
Yeah, in Colombia as well. Like yeah, everyone used gold. But But it was because the mindset was different, not because they didn't value the gold, but because in their mindset was the divine is everywhere. We cannot hold the divine. The divine should be there. We have to use it all the time. It has to be a common exchange for everybody, and you shouldn't keep it because it's like keeping God in a box, So God should be everywhere. And that's a different way of seeing it. It's not like, oh yeah, no, for the Indo-American traditions, gold was nothing. No, it was very important, but not economically. It was important spiritually. The same thing for Egypt and Mesopotamia. So for Egypt and Mesopotamia, gold was so important that everyone had stuff made of gold, the same as every American tradition. So that's why they use gold everywhere. They decorated everything with gold. Everyone had something made of gold because it was related to God. So instead of having a rosary, they had gold. To represent that eternity. The thing is, when the European people that also were using gold in that way at the beginning, when the European people started to create a different way of economy related to storaging minerals instead of food, when they said it's because the value of gold can last forever, so they changed the concept of the gold from spiritual to administration. And that was the main shift, because the Vatican, the Celts, the Norse, they all use gold for everything because it was a precious material to show that they were connected to God, to eternity. But at some point, the European people started to think, let's administrate everything in gold. And most of the people that started to think that way were the people that thought that everything in the world, in the matter, was not sacred. Only God in the skies is sacred. So they took the holy aspect of the physical things and put it into heaven. So, for example, in Judaism and all the Judaism traditions, with the Kabbalah, with the Hebrew tradition, they didn't value gold. They valued the word. So they said God is word. The other traditions also said that, but also value the nature of God. But because the Judaism, the Semitic tradition that came, there were first of all the Aramaic, the Jews, the Christians, all those traditions, they didn't value nature as the divine, but they value the word of God as the divine. So they started to use gold as an exchange of economy instead of divine of God. And that's how they turned to be, we turned to be disconnected from gold. And they started to look for gold for administration purposes instead of divine connection. So by keeping all the gold and storing all the gold, they basically started to control God. That's it's not about economy. It's about the power of connectivity. It's about who you are. So gold is not about wealth. Gold is about God. So
very similar in the ways that they're spelled.
Yeah, totally, very similar. So in those terms, that's why the philosophers, they used to say the philosopher's stone actually is this triangulation from the mind to the heart, is the stone that in the center has the voice, the word of God. But you have mind and heart, and the center is the creator with a voice. The upper part is Sophe, the lower part is Filet. So Filet Sophe is Filet, the feelings. Feelings comes from that. So Filet is the heart, and Sophe, which is Sophia, knowledge. Okay, so
Saber.
yeah, saber. So so the philosopher's stone is not about a sorcerer's physical stone that can turn everything into gold. It's basically, how can you, a rotten stone, become eternal and divine by unifying what you feel and what you think and what you say. So that is actually the philosopher's stone. How do you turn everything into the real gold?
You were channeling different versions of Merlin in the series you recently put out with Gaia, Journey to Remembering. And Merlin said through you, the power of the words you have not said are sometimes stronger than those that we speak. And that the first wound is the word I cannot, because that is when we give our power to others and to the outside.
Yeah.
Merlin had some knowledge, some wisdom to drop there.
Yes, apparently. Yes.
What else has Merlin taught you about the power of our words?
Well, he said, one of the main things that he said to me once was, he made me walk a whole path through England and Scotland. And at the very last day, I sat down under a tree that he told me, you have to go there after all your path. When I sat down under the tree, I said, I'm ready to receive the message. And I was alone. And he said, the message is that you are nothing, that you don't worth it. I was like, okay. Like,
damn, bro.
Like,
give me some sweetness.
You are void. And so he started to basically destroy me. And you are not important and you don't matter. With this British accent, you don't matter. And so I was like, ouch. And he told me that everything that I thought was my mission in this life, that's why I'm not accomplishing it, because I'm losing time doing things that I expect to do and not the things that I'm supposed to be. And that's for everyone. So for me, that was one of the most powerful things that he told me, because that led me to the I am. Because I started to wonder, what am I? So who am I? And if I'm nothing, then what is me? And that thing, because I was actually trying to present a project for Ontocracy in Sweden. In Stockholm, I was about to go there to this foundation and present the project and say, I want to organize this this app for a new social system. And I was so concerned on changing politics in the planet. So he said, you're wrong. You're not doing it right. I said, when you think that the problem is politics in this planet, you don't get it. And I said, why? I said, because politics come from polis. Polis is a city. A city cannot exist without the people. The people is the one that shapes politics. The way of thinking and the culture of those peoples are the way of thinking. So you cannot change politics without changing the people. And
the culture.
And the culture. So how can you cultivate new people? Well, first of all, you have to let that people know that they are not what they are supposed to be. And how do you do that? By questioning who they are. So you cannot change politics, because politics is just the last line of a very long process of building people that don't know who they are. So the question is, who are you? Who am I? And from there, you can change everything. And that's what Merlin told me. And that's why I started the I Am project. Yeah.
And then you went to Egypt.
I went to Egypt.
And
yeah. And I question myself every day, and I destroy my beliefs every day, and until I kind of got a little bit of an idea of how to do it. Yeah.
And these conversations that you had in the pyramid between, let's say, your ego, Matias self, and the I Am presence, you put these now into books, which is beautiful. Yeah. And we'll send people to go find those books on Amazon and wherever else you're putting them out there. But just to begin wrapping up and telling that story of while you were there for 365 days, what is your greatest understanding of I Am in this moment?
Well, I understood from the I Am that whatever I do, if I don't feel that I can smile in the void of what I'm doing, like I'm not in the right center. Like, meaning, if I'm desperate of accomplishing something and I put too much energy in the outside instead of just allowing the void to take all away from me, and I'm still smiling, so I'm not in the I Am. So every time that I desperate myself into, but I have to do this, it's like I'm not in the I Am. And I learned that. That every time that we try something harder than we're supposed to is because we are trying to be something that we are not. That's basically what I got. And when you go back to the center, everything starts to work, and it happens. So that's why I by nature and by my system, I worry, of course, because I'm like rising Capricorn, so I want to have everything organized, and I have to work, and it's always like, oh, I didn't do it right, and I suffer. That's my program, that's my design, and that's why also I honor, because that's what made me do everything that I did. But at the same time, what I got from the I Am was that doesn't actually matter. It's just a program, and you don't have to release that program, but you should never forget that it is. And that's the beauty of it, because sometimes we try to, okay, that's my program, so I have to release my program so I can be free. No. It's like summer is here, so you threw away all the winter clothes. It's like, no, I'm gonna throw away all the winter clothes because summer is here. Yeah, but winter is coming later. So
you're gonna need it.
You're gonna need it. So of course, now it's hot. You shouldn't wear like a coat in summer, but eventually you will need the coat. So it's not about releasing all that. It's about to acknowledging it and knowing that it's a tool, that it's not you. So that was my biggest insight from the whole thing, I believe. Yeah.
What is the next task for humanity right now?
The next task for humanity right now? Think more about what consciousness is. And the reason why is because I see everyone is desperate, and I was myself desperate about technology and everything that is happening now. We're going too fast, and it's going to be terrible. So I think that instead of judging the tools that we are creating, we have to judge our consciousness. So that's the main task that we have today. Rethink about what consciousness is, so we can live in harmony with everything that is coming.
In one sentence, what is consciousness?
Is the ability to make sense of the missing parts and the disconnected aspects of the self.
What is one thing that you experience that you wish all people experienced?
To die in life. This beautiful feeling of letting everything go and forgetting who you are. And remembering that nothing actually exists, and even though everything makes sense. I think that could be summarized in a buffo ceremony.
In one sentence, what is death? Buffo.
Yes. So at least for 15 minutes, you can feel it. And I highly recommend situations which you allow yourself to disappear, because that gives too much sense to everything.
Yeah. My favorite quote of yours is, "It's not the answer that opens the mind, it's the question." So it seems like from this podcast that we've had and in our previous conversations, you have a lot of answers. But I wanted to finalize this show in particular with asking you, what is one question that you are asking yourself the most right now in this current moment of your life?
Why? Why am I doing this? Why should I do this? Why is actually this happening? So I think why, it's one of the things that I, even if I have all these answers and knowledge of why we're doing all this, sometimes I said, I'd come back to that, like, why did it happen?
I believe that our ability to ask why is what makes us divine. Mm-hmm. And when oneness asks itself, what else is there? Why am I only oneness? Then it created this big bang effect throughout the whole universe that then created all of these dimensions, reality. It's why we're having this conversation. So that's a beautiful way to end it. Matias de Stefano, hermano, gracias por tu tiempo. Thank you so much for the wisdom that you share, the knowledge that you carry, the mission that you have, and also the huge heart that you hold. It's beautiful to see other men lead in the way that you lead. And I know that we will continue to have these conversations for many years to come, hopefully. And in any way that we can support you, we are here. The whole community is behind you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everything.